Perfect, thank you. So 2 more talks to go, and I hope you're now ready to dig into the deep, 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 deep green ocean. So, who's that guy anyway? My name is Peter Foerger. I work at T3EE16, Frankfurt. And back in 1999, I guess, I had a relationship. It was a short relationship, my first relationship with Title 3. It lasted for approximately 5 minutes or so. I had to put it away, and around 4 years later I came back to it, and ever since then I'm having this relationship in Title 3. And I try to contribute to the system in very different ways, from maintaining some of the obsolete extensions like the Kickstarter, and being an administrator of the long-gone association side, and nowadays doing code reviews and stuff like that. I also have 2 extremely expensive hobbies. One is 15 years old and the other 13 years old. And of course I have a cat. Yay. I have a second cat too. With the permissions of my son, this is our 3rd cat, and pretends to also be capable of reading books. And last but not least, we have a 4th cat. Look at those eyes, he's a killer, I tell you. So let's get serious. Why build? The build is a crucial point in software development. Historically, it's about compiling source code into artifacts and then running them on whatever system. So for me, in my daily life, it's the most important task in our continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline. Everything else is candy, but the build is the crucial one. Everything else is like copying stuff from node A to node B. That's not mandatory. So, considering builds, we have to compare real-world builds to software builds. We have to distinguish what is real-world stuff and what's different in software builds. So I guess that might be true for the most boys here in the room. This, or something like this, may have been your first build. When you grew up, you might do some more advanced and more different stuff. So what these builds have in common, real-world builds, are mostly final. Mostly. So sometimes, even in a perfect world, you have to transpond something.
That was the T3EE officer.
Not really. Back in those days, yeah. So what we need to keep the build going is a sort of software development process, and I show you one of these, which is the waterfall principle, and I googled that, and it's still 1/3 of all the software development still uses this waterfall principle, which is a sequential, non-iterative design process. So you do your analysis, you do the design, the construction, you implement the stuff, you verify that, and in the end, you do the maintenance. Much more popular nowadays is the agile approach. And look at this guy. Don't do this at home, actually. He's very massive, but he's also capable and flexible. So even if you have a huge, massive project with cross-functional teams, you should utilize the appropriate practices in their context. So you see here these guys training to be agile and flexible. I found a quote on the net from a guy called André, I hope I pronounced it correctly, which is a French author and winner of the Nobel Prize way back in 1947. And this quote for me sums it up what is really beneficial on the building process. Just think about it. So the build process always has to come with some value for us developers. First of all, I want to talk about the benefits for the individual developer. So for an individual developer, actually, anybody knows this guy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Billy boy.
So for an individual developer, it's really crucial to get all the incremental changes into the team as a whole. For the project and or team, it's beneficial to work together and to uncover the integration issues between the different developers. So this can be sometimes hard, as you guess. And it's incredible, this kind of, don't give it away. But you see, as a benefit, it works. For the organization as the whole thing, there are, of course, some business drivers, and they have certain constraints. You have to care about compliance and governance. You have to check out what's going on in globalization and outsourcing. There's, of course, time to market and quality, which is crucial to your build process. But you can be assured that during your complete life cycle, you are knowing what you're doing and why you did it. You also have readability and reliability and being able to do the same thing over and over again and be assured that you're correct each time. And you also go for agile and speed. And this is also important to our project, to the Type 3 as a whole, to have one of these superheroes, and I'm glad to know this guy. So actually, how do you build? So when you're looking at Wikipedia, you find this quote: building software is an end-to-end process that involves many distant functions. This is true. I would bring it a step further and advertise you to build radical. Radical, not in the strict sense of the definition of the word, but radical in the sense for reusable. Have reusable code ready that you can put on every machine. Make it accessible. Accessible in the sense that everyone in the team, the developer, the project manager, maybe your clients, have some entry point to your code. Documented. It has to be understood by everybody in the team. Integrated means it has to be integrated with your tool set, for example, Git or your IDE. It has to be complete, of course, and it has to be automated as much as possible. And as another good advice, it should be lean. So why green? Green actually is the color between blue and yellow, and it's the color of living grass and leaves. It is often associated with springtime, with growth, and with nature. And regarding to traffic lights, it communicates some safety and stuff. A fun fact is that there are languages where blue and green are the same word. For example, Old Chinese and Old Japanese have that as the same word. For them, actually, green is just a shade of blue. So, fun fact beside that, anybody here in the room knows Jenkins? Jenkins, the CI server? It's actually a tool where you can run all your builds and stuff like that. And I found a quote on their FAQ. Just read it carefully. And no, it doesn't have to do anything with human man's testicles. This is really a question there. And does anybody know the answer?
Because the traffic light in Japan, their lights are...
Perfect. I guess you see my slides before.
No, like, quite a while.
Yeah. This is cool, and this is actually the reason why there's an extremely accessible plugin for Jenkins, which is called Green Balls. And this is, yeah, because everybody wants these little balls to go green inside Jenkins. So, green enables everybody, or should enable everybody to see what is happening. Actually, this is red all the way, but it's the status board we in my team have on our wall, and there's also some light going on. And it actually visualizes the fact that you have to put in some effort that something's going wrong. So how to keep it green if something is going wrong? Actually, you need, of course, the right tools for the job. And for me, for your local development, an IDE, an integrated development environment, which has a source code editor, some build automation tools, and debugger, is crucial to write your code. You should also have some linters in place. Anybody is aware what a linter does or is actually used for? Or should I clarify that? A linter actually gives you some warnings about syntax errors or, let's say, undeclared variables, calls to deprecated function like this. It's a static code analyzing. You can have different linters running and stuff. What you see here is a tool we use, which is a subset of the fabricator project. I come to that later. Here you see there are some merge conflict markers in my code, which if you bring this to production, deploy this to production, it will blow up your site. And to get this done before, you should use a linter. As we heard earlier today, code reviews. Code reviews are really a big point. I won't go into detail on that. Mentioned in Fabricator is a tool which was originated by the guys from Facebook, and they still use it. The main developers got their own company now, and as you might know from Garrett, you have a lot of functions there. You just can go into the commit and have some chance to do your inline commands, stuff like that. And in the end, of course, you can reject or accept the whole thing, and it's also fun to work with it because we have some mind stuff in there and get the applause. So sometimes we heard that before too, it's really hard to convince your developers to stick to certain rules. So I always find it out we have such clever colleagues at DKD, they always find a way around not pushing into some stuff like that. So I would recommend to really bring the pain forward and force them to do and to stick to a certain workflow. One example of that is, everybody agrees that this is a trivial change? No, it isn't. There are no trivial changes. What you see here is just, might look trivial to just raise the last version number to a bug fix release. But this will result in a totally different kind of software package deployed on your system. It can never ever be trivial. So the way we force that is we hook into the system, and if somebody tries a git push, it doesn't matter what version control system you're using. If somebody tries to do a git push, it gets rejected, and the reason is there's an accepted differential revision. Differential is the tool inside Fabricator which lets you do the code reviews. So once you build a screen, now what? So this guy here, Brady Rouge, was one of the guys who did the first draft on continuous integration way back in 1991. And his recommendation on this first draft was to do such an integration once a day. So the guys from the XP, the extreme programming, extreme programmers, recommended to do it several times a day. And that's actually what's happening in most of the companies. That's a quote from Martin Fowler. We heard about him. Nowadays he's chief scientist at Voltworks. And yeah, it's just a phrase that's really, really true. So how to do continuous integration in a way that it works for you. Keep everything in version control, which means it doesn't matter what you use, and I would recommend Git, of course. but it doesn't matter in the end. Automation. Almost everything you can automate, or you have to do more than once. Please automate this stuff. Build, deploy, test that, and finally release it. For stuff that can be automated, do some manual testing. At some level, you need humans for doing the really high value stuff. And as I said before, if it hurts, just go back, do it more often, and do it again. I can only recommend that. So this gives some value. It's just a short chart how we work at DKD. And it's that, what's really cool is that at a very early stage, the developer, the project manager, and even your client get some feedback from running your builds and tests on Jenkins. So everybody in the room here is using some sort of continuous integration or continuous environment? 1, 2. Okay. Then to the others, how do you deliver software? Who's using some sort of FTP or SFTP? Nobody?
Yes.
Yeah, yes!
Exactly. Oh.
Don't do it. It's the most insecure thing you can do. Trust me. Trust me. Git, SSH, some sort, cool. And Git in Capistrano. Capistrano is a Ruby gem. Nobody in the room? Deployer, which is a port from Capistrano, the Ruby gem, to PHP, because PHP developers can work better on PHP code. Nobody here? Okay. Pretty much a newcomer in the theme is GitHub CI. Everybody using that? Ah, okay. Surf? Ah. Okay. Some custom? Okay. And who has no idea? Okay. So good. Difference that matter. So can anybody explain me the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment? Which is, these are two things which are always confused. It's quite easy. In continuous delivery, your pipeline starts from your build, you do your tests, you deliver on the stages, and then it stops before you deploy to production. While continuous deployment, you're so confident in your code and in your test that this pipeline goes all the way through to production. And we at DKD decided to do continuous delivery and stop after all the acceptance tests are run. And we give our clients the possibility to do this last step, just having a look at the site, at the features they want to have in this release, and then you can press the button. It doesn't necessarily have to press a button in Jenkins. Any other tool will do that too. And they're quite happy that they, with a button click, can deploy their features to production. So that's continuous delivery. There are some values in there. What we hear often is stuff like that. So a developer goes to the management and talks about implementing a cool thing, in this case, source control system. And the answer that comes back is always, is it free? And let's skip it a bit later. We don't have the time now. And this goes on and on for a lot of different stuff we developers need. So explain to the management that the value in continuous integration and continuous delivery lies in reducing manual human errors as much as possible. Anyone can deploy, as I mentioned before. You have reproducibility, auditability, and that's it. So some best practices here to sum it up. Always build binaries or artifacts once and distribute them to the nodes that you want to run them on. Deploy the same way to every environment. Just keep the configuration files outside your repository. Smoke test all your deployments. Everybody's familiar with the term smoke test? Smoke test just gives you runs basic tests that your site is available and the crucial parts of the site, like the navigation, like the search, are in place. It doesn't test for specific things like forms or stuff like that. Keep your environment similar. This is quite easy, because then you won't hear again that works on my machine, on the other it doesn't. If anything fails, stop the line. Just there is some error, don't try to circumvent that. Oh, this test is not passed, okay, let's take the artifact from there and put it there. No, don't do it. Stop the line and rethink about it. And of course, use semantic versioning. For those who don't know, go to semserver.org. It's a 10-minute read, and you get the idea behind it. It's also used in the Chapter 3 core project. As I said before, put your environment configuration somewhere external. They have to do nothing with your build. And try to have short-lived feature branches, which will save you from the hassle to merge back into master and have a couple of merge conflicts you have to try to solve and stuff like that. My personal record is 4 hours, 30 minutes to resolve merge conflicts from a feature branch that went out and was never rebased. So that's really no fun. Use feature toggles, which means integrate your features in a way that they are conditionally available, so that you have conditions that only a certain part of users can see. This way you can make sure you test your feature in a live environment. Your usual user will not see the new feature until it's really, you give it a go. Blue-green deployments are also cool, but it's a matter of infrastructure. The idea behind blue-green deployments is that you have basically the same production site, the infrastructure twice. Have your MySQL server twice, have the production server twice, have the web server twice. And then deploy to the non-active, and if your deployment succeeds, just switch it. I can quickly show you some deployment tools we use at DKD. One of it's called DK Deploy, it's open source. And this is my colleague Timo, which is the lead developer in the project. And what's currently work in progress, we have two pull requests. Open is our Type 3 CMS integration. What we managed to do is to bring the real advanced tasks that are specific to Type 3 CMS into our deployment. A lot of people claim to automatically deploy Type 3, but what they're doing is they bring the code somewhere, and then they log into the install tool, they do a database compare, they change install to password and stuff like that, and they call it deployment. That isn't deployment at all. So we create a task for that. We can run CLI tasks like Type 3 console. We can deactivate the maintenance page, create encryption keys, and so on, and so on, and so on. This is pretty cool. Why will we do that? It's simple. We can not only deploy PHP or Type 3 application, we can deploy WordPress, any kind of PHP application, we can deploy Ruby, we can deploy Node, whatever we like. You don't have to have a server-side installation. Just a server with SSH enabled does the job. It can seamlessly integrate it into a CI/CD environment. It's easily extensible. You don't even, when I started at DKD, I didn't know the very, very basics of Ruby. But it's no problem for me to extend this deployment tool by writing these lines. It's self-explanatory. So here, I might have a few minutes left. Let's, whoops. What I actually, where we go? Here. Sorry. So the why again. What I show here is how this works in real life. All you have to do is some certain convention for the path, and you see here, there's nothing in the path over there, and You can even look into the database. We provision that database by now, and you see, as I do, show tables on there. It's empty. And then we can generate some different stuff, like generating a real cool encryption key. You can use that to copy paste it into the next task, where you ask for the encryption key. This is what I do here. Same goes for the install to password. We can set this all from the command line. Everybody knows that. Yeah, it's the only one I can remember all the time. So, crucial part here is create your DB credentials. Because we do this on a local VM, it's local host, of course. You can set a port, DB, all the stuff you know. We have certain conventions for our record machines, so they always have to start with typo3 and then underscore and then the domain name. There's some magic behind it. So, now that's done. The settings are uploaded on the machine. We also have tasks to add a certain default DB structure, create the necessary tables, and in the second step, fill them with some default content you might like to have. That's what you see here. It comes all from a folder, config proceed. And the same thing is true for assets. The basic stuff we do here. You can also create an admin user. This is a standard task you need to do. So, and we heard this today, composer. Typo3 goes composer, and we have all the tasks for that. And then finally, that's the final step. We deploy all this stuff on our development environment. What I showed you before is initial setup. You have to do this once. You actually do this on your Jenkins server, just doing all the setup stuff on the nodes you want to have. And every second step and the following steps are always this one-liner. Cap for it's an alias for Capstrano. Then you specify the stage where you want to deploy the stuff, and that's it. And then you can show your mark that all the tables have been created on the server, and you can also log into the backend, where the document root, as I showed you in the first step, was empty in the beginning. So this is a really pretty cool tool. Let's wait to see if it works. Yeah. Okay, the wins that you get. As I told you, there's one step only. Of course, you have to do the initialization once, but then that's that one-liner. You have less errors. It's even for non-geeks. You don't have to have some complicated server infrastructure. It's easy to extend. Rollbacks, I must admit, there's a certain problem, but I guess everybody who does deployment knows about that, which are databases. So actually, what you could do is, prior to deployment, do a dump of your database, which takes a lot of time. And then, in the case of a rollback, dump again. But that's not really a solution. I've been talking to a lot of people. By now, nobody has a really good working solution for having a rollback. Maybe you don't, yeah?
No, I'm not sure if it's a feasible solution for you, but if you do A/B deployments, as you talked about before,
Yeah.
then it's limited how much time you have to lose data.
Correct, yeah.
So if you switch back to the inactive environment, which was the previous production environment,
Yeah.
then you have probably a gap of 5 minutes with database
Yeah.
consistency.
Yeah. Might be a way. We can talk about this later.
I mean, it depends. As you might know, we have projects where we have been doing stuff with the formerly known AODB stuff.
Yeah.
Like, especially you have like hot and cold tables. Like especially, let's say, you have stuff like baskets and people buy buying stuff on the
Yeah.
website or newsletter, newsletter subscriptions. This is stuff that you might want to store in a separate database table. So that
or you have
aspects
to
are like this.
Yeah,
like-
or you have to put it in the queue and.
Yeah, so there's things you can do to maybe to take care not to lose that crucial data. I mean, there's always things like editors doing content changes throughout the years
That's right, yeah.
and throughout the days and so on. But nevertheless, that doesn't really mean that you don't have you should not worry about backups and maybe hot copies. And if you like, let's say if you have a special database or stuff, could be also done like with clustering, that you have like kind of a cluster that is like a cluster system that is like kind of taking care of making hot copies of a slave of that database. So, but this adds a lot of complexity to the setup, and you know, especially then if we talk about working with background with varnish in front of it, and pre-warming caches and all the stuff. We've been through that, so. We try to keep this DK deploy stuff.
The point I was trying to make was just that may be a task which currently is not optimal at all. The implementation we have currently, that was the kind of point. Yeah.
In our deployment tool, we have rollbacks, but we also include the database in the current state.
Okay, did everybody hear that?
So we don't.
I can repeat it, yeah, if you say please. No,
we don't just build the database from the SQL files as Typo 3 would do it, but we actually have a dump of the database within the deployment. But that's very custom, and I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. So, of course, you can. If you would like to test it, you can check out the code. It's on GitHub, and you can also find the documentation there. And of course, we offer support for that. If you're interested in that, I will put the slides up on SpeakerDeck, so you can just download that. The second tool, which is kind of new, my colleague Johnny was presenting it this morning, is the integration from platform SH on Typo 3 level. So this might be the future. I hope so. We will see. And this is cool. This is actually a picture from the Typo 3 award 2 weeks ago in Munich. Shows the man in the middle, Robert Douglas from platform SH. So, are there any questions? I'll wait for.
Maybe.
Thanks.
Thomas.
My question is regarding their deployment speed. This one was their introduction package, something like that, or a small initial website.
Correct.
And that was
Just our basic set of assets.
it was relatively fast.
Yeah.
If you have an average project, how long would it take to deploy with a tool like this? Because we're sometimes facing deployment times that it's relatively slow compared to what you just showed. And with the deploying to, let's say, 10 instances in the AWS, etc., what is your expected average deployment time for an average solution that you
That's a
provide?
good question. Good question. It really depends. Really depends on what I can say. The less migration stuff you have to run. We use Doctrine for migrations. The less migration stuff you have to run, which has to iterate over multiple database tables, the faster it is. So I would say I'm not getting nervous if a deployment goes up to 5 minutes.
Okay. But up to 5 minutes is still fast in my comparison.
Yeah, but it really depends on the website or the kind of application you're deploying and how many tables, how many entries in there. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's not copying stuff from A to B. That's
Yeah, but
no big deal at all. Sorry?
that can take a long time as well.
It can take a lot, and then you should think about green-blue deployments.
Yeah. Super. Thanks.
Yeah. Ben, you have another question?
Yes.
Yes.
So you mentioned platform SH
Yes.
as maybe an alternative,
Yeah.
and I was wondering, what you think might stop you from using platform SH. I think it goes into
Yes,
the
yeah.
let me explain a bit, because I think
course,
it
sorry.
goes into the direction of the platform SH is also pretty dependent on a number of other storage solutions which might be. It sounds to me like it could be an application that's outdated pretty soon, or I mean, not generic enough or something like that.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. But one point, we have a couple of customers which run their own infrastructure. They have certain needs, and maybe, for an example, government sites or stuff like that. They have certain need to have stuff behind the DMZ or stuff like that. And this will be pretty hard to integrate platform there, because you will do your integration and your testing on platform in the cloud, and then you somehow have to bring your data back and transmit it to their server. And that's, I don't have a good solution for that right now.
So one of the other things that comes in mind is how do you feel personally about security of something that like platform SH in the cloud and the things that you manage yourself?
I have to trust the text that's in the contracts, and that says your data is secure. That's
Maybe that's one question I can answer.
yeah. Hand over the microphone.
So basically, everybody who works let's say, within a German context and handles personal data of their users has to take care of having a proper data policy and data contracts with everybody involved. That means if I go to a web host, like I would be going to zdreicom, an example, and I would rent a server and do stuff on that, and I need to go to zdreicom and say, hey, I need to have a special contract about that you know that I'm doing stuff on that server,
That's right,
and that I'm putting you into some kind of an agreement into that. So that's how Germans think, but it's quite very, very, there's a lot of contracts, as Peter said. If we go back now to platform SH, is that they offer let's say a multi-approach. You can use, let's say, the general platform that is there, currently still working, or is working at this moment on Amazon infrastructure. The Amazon infrastructure is two-tiered. There's a European and a US infrastructure, and Platform SH and Microsoft have teamed up because of the big concerns that German companies have and Swiss companies might have to have a properly set up data center in Germany that is under the stewardship of Deutsche Telekom, and it's owned by Deutsche Telekom, so that basically neither Microsoft nor Platform SH have to follow suit some kind of, let's say, legal things, because they're either French or half French, half German, or like US companies, and so that they can offer us on a special assignment a very high level of data protection for those installations. That doesn't make sense for everybody, but I think that the general security level, the general data protection level is pretty fair if you remain within European data centers. Nevertheless, depending on what you want to achieve, you need to take care of that. There was one thing that I'd like to add to this, is that also if you go to somebody else asking for permission to use such a technology, you should also take care of not to go into a mode of we need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this to use it, because then you will never end having this decision. You need to go to those people, basically the stakeholders and the CEOs, CTOs, all those of the world, and just need to say, this is what we're going to achieve. We're going to achieve massive amount of scaling, whatever, all kind of stuff you need to, the things that you can find on the cloud pages, and then say,
You have to promote it in
you have to
Word, right?
promote it, and
Yeah.
this, you will see that then data policy will naturally come to that, because people will say, oh, it's worth making the effort then. It's not going, it's just about asking permissions in the right way.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Ben? I hope so. Thank you, Olivier. So, any more questions? There in the back.
One small question only regarding the rollbacks. Did you consider actually having two databases where
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
change them in the configuration?
I've talked to our admins about that, yeah. They weren't very happy with the idea. It has to be discussed. Just we're in the process of getting some stuff. Any more questions? Then I'd like to say thank you.